Welcome to StartupJab.
Yes, indeed. This is a momentous occasion because for the first time in a long while, we have somebody who not only works for the government, but is super cool. I'm Jason. That's Teague. Teague, say hi to the people.
Hi, people.
There you go. And welcome to StartupJab, episode 10, The Business of Space. You may not be able to see her, but you'll be able to hear her, and hopefully her Wi-Fi will come back and you'll be able to see her. I'd like to introduce our close and personal friend, Lauren Worley. Lauren, say people.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm Lauren Worley. I don't know if you can't see me, it's fine. It's probably better just to hear my voice. I have a face for radio. Anyway, I'm Lauren Worley. I'm the press secretary and senior advisor at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration based in Washington, D.C.
Excellent. Which is a really fun way of saying she's super important. This is a big deal. Hey, everybody, please all tell your friends because we got a real person on here who's done some really cool stuff. So, Lauren, I mean, I know you and you and Teague have met at least once, I think, right? A couple of times.
Yeah, collaborate, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But for the people who don't know you and don't know the wonder, the joy, the rapture that is you and your job, can you describe a little bit what it means to be a press secretary at NASA and to a further extent, a senior advisor, which is a pretty cool title?
Well, a senior advisor, I can't talk about that role whatsoever. But the role.
But you advise in a seniorly way.
We advise in a seniorly way,
Yeah.
and we are a civil space agency, so everything we do is open to the public, which is a great part of my job. As the press secretary, I have a couple of responsibilities. The first is to you, though, and that is to make sure that you, the general public, everybody knows what NASA is up to. I work with an incredibly talented team of public affairs officers, who specialize. We've got the gal for astrophysics. We've got the guy for earth science. We've got the gal for human exploration. So the team here is really talented. They're really good at what they do. And my job is to kind of put a lot of those efforts together and make sure that the White House team is also up to speed on all things space. And so that's, if all I had to do every day is put on pants, come to work and talk about space, I've had a really great day.
It's a good deal.
That's hard to argue with. Yeah.
True.
How does somebody get a job like this? I mean, how do you go looking for I want to go work for NASA and I kind of want to go do all this really cool stuff?
Well, all of NASA's jobs are actually posted on USA Jobs, including the job of astronaut. So when we are recruiting our next class of astronauts, you'll go on USA Jobs just as if you're going to apply to be a secretary or an accountant. Here, lawyer. We have space lawyers. We have space economists.
Lawyer. That's
space
awesome.
Lawyer. We have a whole crew of space lawyers.
I really hope that's the actual job title.
Oh, God. Can you imagine that on a business card?
Yeah. I know, right?
I want that business card.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah. Just put space in front of anything on a business card and it sounds awesome.
Right. Well, because everybody in startup world is, ninja, guru, expert,
right.
Blah, blah, blah. Screw you. I'm a space lawyer. That's awesome.
It's talking of space law. I mean, that's a little bit about what kind of brought us here today. So Jason and I were speaking recently, about Blab, and we were also talking about a lot of other issues. And I said, space economy. That's like a really big thing for us right now. And the more we build an economy, the more lawyers we actually need to help us navigate ourselves through it. So there's actually a real burgeoning market for space lawyers. So get in while the market's hot. If you're a lawyer and need a job.
So let's talk about this space
Mars.
economy. When you say space economy, the thing that immediately comes to mind is like SpaceX. And in some regards, I guess SpaceX and maybe like nanoracks, but because they have an office around here or something. But what are the other sort of areas for private companies to get into space, and what are some of the players in that economy?
So when I talk about the space economy, what I'm talking about is that every penny that we spend on space is actually spent here on Earth, right? We don't have Bitcoin in space. The astronauts aren't exchanging money. Back in the 60s or the 70s when we had Skylab, they actually used sugar cookies as currency on Skylab. So there isn't an established economy in space yet. So I'm talking about exactly what you're talking about, which is the use of American and other commercial companies to get us further in terms of space exploration. And that means a lot of things. That means work that's happening right now on the International Space Station. For 15 years, there hasn't been a moment that there hasn't been an American living and working in space. And so there's a lot of research that goes on there. There's a lot of companies, including Procter & Gamble, Merck, the Cleveland Clinic. They all do, they have experiments through NanoRacks or through our organization called CASIS. It's an independent agency that runs all the science on the space station. So that's happening. We're doing a lot of things. So as you know, the space shuttle was retired in 2011. And so now we still need to get our cargo up to the astronauts, and we need to get astronauts to space. How are we doing that? We are using commercial companies like Orbital Sciences and SpaceX to get our cargo to space. That's already working. They're already doing a great job with that. And now we're going to use Boeing and SpaceX to get our astronauts to space. That's the next phase of our program.
How often are you sending cargo up to space? I mean, like, are we talking like it's a weekly launch kind of thing?
Not weekly, but 6 times a year. I think that's about right. Okay. Regularly.
So
we've had a couple. Yeah, we've had a couple anomalies, which has messed with the schedule just a little bit. But generally speaking, we're sending a lot of stuff up there. We're sending the astronauts clothes and their food, very important. And then we're sending the science experiments that I was talking about. The astronauts do hours and hours of science experiments every day, some for NASA, some for other entities. And so that's what's going on up there all day long. The other thing they have to do, by the way, is work out 2 hours a day. And so occasionally I tell my bosses I'm going down to the gym because I want to train like an astronaut. So I got to be in the gym for at least 2 hours a day.
Good. You got to get swole, bro.
Yeah. Totes.
Is that what the kids say? I don't. I'm not a child anymore.
Sure. You guys have me convinced.
Sure. Yeah. He and I were both born with these beards, so I have no concept.
Yeah. So a little farther afield than the International Space Station, we've got a question from the audience about what's the protocol with land ownership on the moon when companies do land on the moon? Is it a free for all? Is this like, do you have a flag? I mean, what's the protocol here?
Well, for those who saw The Martian, and those who haven't, technically space is guided by maritime law, but there are international treaties that start with the UN that actually govern how space is managed and how property will be assessed on the moon. So there's a lot of folks we haven't had to deal with this issue yet. America is still the only country that's landed people on the moon. But as other countries look to do that, and as commercial entities look to do that, there's a large body of law that we're looking to establish to designate those rights. So stay tuned. Hasn't all been decided yet, but it is not a free-for-all.
More work for the space lawyers.
And more work for the space lawyers. The other thing we have to take into consideration is we want to maintain the Apollo landing sites as national heritage sites. So a lot of work is being done in Congress on that currently to make sure we establish the precedent, establish the law to protect those sites. So, China can't come crashing down where the moon buggy is and ruin it. We want to keep that for posterity.
Sure. We don't want anybody to build a casino where we had the first people landing on the moon.
Maybe just to the side.
Hang on a second. Economically speaking, that's not a bad idea. And we were talking about this. You shouldn't do anything that doesn't bring value. What would bring more value? What would bring more economic value to the moon than a casino?
A space casino.
There's a space casino. There's a fellow named Bob Bigelow, Bigelow Aerospace. He made his fortune actually operating budget hotels, and he's based in Las Vegas. And he is actually using NASA-derived technology to build what we call inflatable habitats. Honestly, they look like huge Jiffy Pops, okay? And what we're going to do with these, because the space station is the size of an American football field, right? So it's kind of finite. We could send more cubes up to that piece, but the easiest way to expand the space station is to actually use these inflatable habitats to create more room on the space station for experiments and for space tourists. So that's the first step. Getting the hotels is the first step. Casinos, little down the line.
That makes sense. You need the people before you let them start betting on things. So space tourism. How far away are we from space tourism? How close is that to being an actual reality where someone can say, I want to just, buy a ticket to space for the week?
We're really, really close. We're not 2 years close, but we're not 10 years away either. We have companies like Virgin Galactic that are in the testing phase of their work. They've had dozens of people who have already purchased tickets to get ready to go. So as Virgin Galactic's a key company in this. There are others. Right. As they, there's a lot of space travel is very difficult, and it's a flip thing to say maybe, but it's very sincere when I say it. Sure. So there's a lot of work to do. Virgin Galactic had an anomaly last November. They lost a pilot, so they're going to work through all those issues before they certify that they're ready to go.
Sure. Well, and I think it brings up an interesting point, sort of related to that there's a huge amount of capital, and I don't mean just monetary, but just, time, energy, brain power that has to go into the kind of business of space that you're talking about, whether it's tourism or building something in a location or whatnot. I think traditionally most of us think of NASA as being, sort of the forefront of that. What are your thoughts in terms of some of the thinking that's coming out of places like SpaceX or Virgin Galactic in comparison to the kind of work that you guys are doing? Is it in competition? Is it hand-holding, sort of skipping down the road altogether, friends and family? Or what's the balance there?
Yeah. Well, if we go back in time and we look at, the creation of the airplane. Well, thanks. And I'm a proud Ohio girl, so I got to throw the Wright brothers in here at some point. When we first started flying airplanes, there was no government entity creating the airplane, right? And so we had folks like Charles Lindbergh and others who were competing for prizes, flying across the Atlantic, flying around, circumnavigating the globe, those kinds of things. And that's kind of the origin that we see NASA coming out of, right? So before there was NASA, there were all these commercial companies doing things. NASA has led the forefront in large part through the race against the Russians to get to the moon. But part of our charter, part of our very existence is to help nurture and establish these commercial entities. And so that's what we're seeing by NASA getting out of the business of, we say here, getting out of the business of low Earth orbit, to go further into space, lead the way to Mars, because there's not an economic imperative to get to Mars, right? Elon Musk is on it because he has a vision of an interplanetary people, not because he's going to make money doing it, right? So there's plenty of room for NASA to lead the pack while also allowing these private companies to come in and kind of fill in the gaps where we don't need to be.
Okay, so speaking of Mars, right? So Mars is big in the zeitgeist at the moment, right? Yeah, I imagine. The Martian just came out. I haven't seen it yet. I read the book. I understand that most of it is very scientifically accurate, although how much does that change with, say, the discovery of water on Mars? Does that mean like the whole premise is kind of different now?
Well, let's begin it kind of at the beginning. And there's actually a great, if you go to the nasa.gov website /Real Martians, you'll actually can see our whole video series that compares the science of the book versus science reality. So I encourage you to go check that out. But there's a couple, Andy Weir did an amazing job researching this book, and doing all the work. And he's like awesome. One of the big things, though, that's not what you mentioned, Teague, but is an issue for us, is the windstorm at the beginning of the movie and the beginning of the book. In the book, there's this huge windstorm that knocks over stuff, and that's what leads for Matt Damon to be stranded on Mars. We've
and
actually
this is right in the
not
beginning.
found,
There's no spoilers
there
here.
are windstorms on Mars that have gone faster than this. Right in the beginning. No spoilers here.
Yeah, it's in a commercial. You're okay.
Yes, thanks. The wind, we haven't measured winds faster than 60 miles per hour on Mars at this point. And in the premise of the book is it's like a mile per hour windstorm or something like that. So right off, we got a little bit of scientific. So we have, though, since the book's been published, we've done studies to find lightning storms in Mars. So if I was going to rewrite Andy Weir's book, I would probably make it a lightning storm on Mars rather than a windstorm.
Okay.
Interesting.
But that's like planetary science talk. That's like around the Tang water cooler here, where people are like, "Well, that Andy Weir."
Tang water cooler. That's excellent.
Now I have to ask, and Lauren's a little too modest to mention this, but the character that Kristen Wiig plays in the movie is in part based on you and your role. So does she have a signed poster of you, or do you have a signed poster of her? I guess would be my question.
Both. Little known, also Kristen Wiig also portrayed me in the movie Bridesmaids because I was a disaster. I was a disastrous maid of honor in a wedding last year. I could have done better. So she did not research me in particular, but I've got to tell you, like, I don't want to be too ridiculous about this, but when I read Annie Montrose in the book, who's the NASA press secretary, I was like, oh my gosh, they've written me. Or maybe I'm just like a standard press secretary with that like bombastic personality that's kind of straight across the board. But I did get a chance to meet some of the producers of the movie. I didn't get a chance to meet Kristen Wiig, but a producer relayed to Kristen that he had met me, and Kristen was pretty psyched that he had met the real life version of her. So it was pretty awesome.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Teague, I'm thinking we might want to take some questions. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we got a couple good questions here.
Yeah.
What should we start with?
Oh, I want to start with Nick. He's been patient. So
Nick asked a really tough question too.
Nick,
so great.
Nick, dude, he wants it out of the gate, man. He wants it difficult. Nick, I know that you are home with headset. If you want to come on and take the empty seat and ask the question directly, we'd be happy to have you. Just click the open seat. But just as a quick, while we're waiting to see what his response is, if you guys are interested in joining, you are, of course, welcome to throw a question in. Give him a few minutes, of course. We'll jump to another question. But you're welcome to throw questions in the chat. If we have seats available, we're happy to, have people in for a minute. We just ask that you don't promote yourselves or the things that you're working on. It's really about our guest and what she's focused on. And as Nick gets his headphones on and tells his dog to politely be quiet, Lauren, if there's one thing you want people to know about space and the way that we're changing our thinking about it in the next 5 years, what would be one thing you'd tell everybody?
We are democratizing space, and we are at an incredible turning point in this nation's space program, who we are as a people. What I think makes our country unique is the amount of emphasis we put on exploring other worlds. And when I say other worlds, I also mean our oceans and our forests and our poles. I mean all of that. But where we are at this point in time, if I can get slightly political for a second, is we have a choice to make. We have a choice to make whether we're going to continue to use commercial companies to get our astronauts to space, or if we're going to maintain our reliance on the Russians to get our astronauts to space, which is the policy of Congress, based on how they fund us. So that's a really key point. The things that we're doing within the agency include changing how we do contracts. In the olden days, NASA would say, okay, really big company that we all know of in the military industrial complex, we're going to say, you tell us how much it will cost. You know what? We're just going to write you a check. We'll write you a check for $1 billion. We've never written a check for $1 billion, but we'll write you a check for $1 billion, and
big check.
Bring us a rock. Bring us a rock. We need a space shuttle. We need an orbiter. We need an observatory. And they've done that and told us, okay, here's how much you need to pay. Now we're changing our contracting model to say, okay, SpaceX, you think you can get us to the space station? Tell us how much it's going to cost. SpaceX says it's going to cost you $100 million, let's say. And we say, okay, now you have to stick to that. You can't come back to NASA and say, oh, sorry, NASA, it's actually going to be $150 million. We're just like, no, we signed the contract. It's a fixed space contract. That seems like a really boring contractual blah, 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 but it's changing the way space travel is done, because it's not just then about building, an independent company. It's about building an industry, right? And it's about making it more democratized for more people to get in the game.
Awesome.
I like it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We have Mr. Wonderful here, a phenomenal artist and local lab genius.
He does seem wonderful.
He is indeed, man. What's your question? What can we do for you?
First of all, great guest. I love it. Fabulous. This is amazing opportunity. So thank you. I love what you're saying. It seems that space is hot. People love it. It's exciting to see what's going on. And I think you briefly touched on like the SpaceX stuff like that. But, it seems like it would be a great opportunity if NASA or, people associated with NASA would create like an American Idol type of thing for, convention. Why not? people are inventing stuff, and why not have this opportunity? Hey, I made this. Have like a competition, like $100,000. I think they kind of do some stuff like that. But, like create the next great invention or next great innovation, and I think that's how SpaceX got started. Like, let's turn it around. Why not just singing? Let's just promote intelligence and promote just in this great new industry of space, and it's just gonna explode. So I mean, I think it's a great time for NASA. I mean, I love what happened with Pluto last week, and you can see how engaging that was, and people really fascinated by the web scope that's coming up, and I think that NASA has this incredible opportunity just to engage the public, and it's just a great time to be involved with all that stuff. So I would just competitions or you see
prizes
South by Southwest, they're just bringing their business apps. Why not do it for space innovation? I mean, people have incredible ideas. I mean, there's some guy who supposedly invented anti-gravity. Okay.
So Lauren, tell us a little bit about what kinds of prizes and competitions are on the horizon.
Yeah, so Wednesday, actually, we're going to celebrate 5 years of Challengesgov, and NASA is a key part of this, where we've been offering a lot of prizes and challenge money to get more people involved in what we're doing. One of the big challenges, and this one happens to be my favorite, is the Asteroid Grand Challenge. And the Asteroid Grand Challenge is very simple. It is to identify all potential asteroid threats to human populations and know what to do about them. See, because we're smarter than the dinosaurs, right? So it's no big deal. So we have someone here, Jason Kessler, who runs this, and so
I love Jason Kessler. He's the
I know everyone loves Kessler, and so Jason's job is pretty simple, right? So he's looking for opportunities throughout the world for us to do this, and I'm going to post a Storify later that has links to all the stuff I've mentioned. So definitely, I'm not going into a lot of detail, but definitely check that out. But we also have an International Space Apps Challenge. Because all NASA data is open source. You can access it, right? So our Earth science data, all this information, again, we are a civil service agency, so we are keeping that open to the public. But data isn't helpful to people if there's not a way to use it, right? It's all ones and zeros. So that's what the Space Apps Challenge is. And it's an international competition. Folks come to us for ways to help people get access to our data, which is really, really exciting. And that's just 2 examples. There's plenty more. So I'll post more later too, for you to check out. I love your idea. I think it's absolutely right, and it's exactly the kind of thing that NASA should be involved in.
I just think for years, the media can dumb down America, but that is not true. I mean, you look at kids and they're fascinated by stuff, and they just you can't lose them at a certain period. You have to grab them, and what's more exciting than space? I don't think there is anything. So I just had one more question. I'm going to jump off, but I posted it. But I was just curious. I mean, you see a lot of stuff going on with water being found and all this stuff. So hypothetically, stuff could be found, say type of plant life or something like that. And that would be obviously not aliens, but some type of plant life. And that would be a major announcement. So I was wondering, how would I guess you would handle, or someone at NASA kind of announce that, hey, we found some, plant life in the universe, and obviously the ramifications that would be ginormous. So how would you set people up? If that ever happened, how would an announcement, if that ever happened, be set up?
Hold on. I want to pause for 1 second, because I love you. I love you like a brother. Nick asked that question. I want to get him in because I think he has some thoughts on it too. But thank you for jumping in as always. You're the man.
Yes.
And let me just tell you.
Amazing.
Yeah. Amazing. Always a pleasure, my friend. Take care.
Nice to meet you.
All right, Nick, jump in, because I want to make sure you get to ask the question the way that you want to ask it, knowing you and that sultry voice that's coming. I know it's coming. It's going to be great.
Can't even wait. Cannot even wait. I'm sorry. I'm just my space smog while we wait.
Dr. De Palma, always a pleasure, my friend.
How are you? How are you, Lauren?
That's great to see you, Nick.
It's good to see you. I guess the last time I saw you, we were actually having lunch at Collaborate, and there was a speaker, and we couldn't have a conversation during the speaker, which I thought was kind of funny. But yeah, so my question, early on was, what is that preparation and that protocol that's required to build up and get all the information together and figure out the strategy and how you're going to share it on a press release, on an announcement, something like what happened, earlier this week with this, detection of ebbing and flowing water on Mars. not just the salinity of the water on Mars, that there is liquid on Mars, but there's actually an ebb and a flow to this ocean on Mars. So all of that, what goes into a preparation for a press release like that? That's pretty phenomenal stuff.
It's pretty awesome. And it all started at least 6 months ago, because every announcement that NASA makes is all research that's been done by either scientists affiliated directly with NASA or at our research institutions. So 6 months ago or more, the fantastic team of scientists who felt they'd made this discovery submitted this to one of the scientific journals. They submitted it to Nature. And it's a little bit arcane, maybe archaic. It was a surprise to me that that's the process and how this works when I joined the NASA team. But 6 months ago, they submitted their study for peer review. The scientific community came back and said, yep, this is a legit announcement that you can make.
Wow.
And then notified us of when the study would be released. And once they notified NASA, they notified us 2 weeks ago that, yes, this is going to be a good thing. We support this study. It just so happened that it happened around the same time this movie, The Martian, came out. There were some allegations that we timed it for that. We're not that good.
But Hollywood is. So
Hollywood is. We are not. We are still civil servants.
Yeah.
And so it was fortuitous. It worked out really well because Mars is in the news with that movie, but it completely, the timing was coincidental with that. So then what happens is we're really lucky because planetary scientists and scientists generally really want to communicate their work. I've never met more people who are generous with their knowledge than the scientists at NASA. They want you to know what it means and they want you to understand it. So our communications team, who aren't necessarily scientists, some are, not all are, we spend a lot of time with them trying to understand this. How do we communicate this to people who have no basis in biology? We're just really trying to make sure we understand it. And so we go through that process. And then the fun part is figuring out how to deliver the news to people, right?
Oh, no.
Oh, no. No.
She just kind of zapped into the black hole there.
Yeah.
What the?
Damn it, Nick. I knew bringing you in here was bad luck.
I'm going to go away now, and maybe that'll change things. No, I'll go ahead and zip off and let her finish. But thanks for the opportunity to jump in. Yeah, that was all my fault.
Yep, nice job. Nice job. Damn it, people. This is why we can't have nice things. I just want to point out. Well, while we're waiting for Lauren to get back, and I'm texting her to see if we can get her. Great reference, Dale. God, that's perfect. As we try to get Lauren back, if you guys do have questions for her, make sure to throw them in the questions queue. I can see that we've got a couple already. In addition, we're happy to keep talking and doing our thing. Actually, there was something that I'll discuss it more when we get her back. There we go. There we go.
Yeah. Every day on the International Space Station, we go through a period of time where we lose communication. It's a planned communication outage with the space station astronauts. So that's basically what just happened.
Right. Except
that's basically. So we're just really
basically
quickly mimicking.
I want to finish what I was telling Nick. So so everyone says, "Oh, Lauren, you got this great job. You're the press secretary of NASA. That must be so easy." And the truth is, it's not. And here's why.
The secretary job is easy.
Who thinks that's easy?
Well, here's the thing, right? So, when Space Shuttle program ended in 2011, we lost an incredibly visible, visceral image of what the space program is, right? And at the same time, we're experiencing a lot of convergence in media, right? And newsrooms are downsizing like crazy. There maybe the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, we're talking about a very select number of newspapers that now have a science reporter, right? And CNN fired their only NASA correspondent. So we don't have a large pool of reporters to work from. However, we do have social media, and that's where you've seen NASA really get in on, talking about the business of space, really jumped in on the forefront of this, because now I no longer have to wait for the New York Times to post, to hopefully put a picture of Pluto on the front page. I can post it on Instagram and you can have it instantly. And so that's the exciting part, following up on our conversation with Nick. That's what's exciting, right? Once we know we have the publication schedule for these findings of water on Mars or new exoplanets or whatever we're announcing, planning the social media part, planning the TV part, how we're going to get that information to you in an exciting way to share our enthusiasm with you. That's the fun part.
Pretty cool. Not shabby.
That's excellent.
So I did also want to point out in correlation with this, something that just hit the Project Apollo archive. So this is a collection of thousands upon thousands of, if I remember, open license images that are available to see from the Apollo program. All this beautiful photography taken from space.
It's really amazing. And, again, I think that goes to the nature of people in this agency who want to share all these wonders with you, with the public, to make that available. The other thing that we've had a lot of fun with, NASA has a SoundCloud where you can actually download, sounds of like Saturn V engines and the first sounds of interstellar space from the Voyager spacecraft, which is my personal favorite. You can hear all those things on the NASA SoundCloud. And again, I'll post those links later for you to check out.
For those of you who are listening to this later on the podcast, we'll get all those links into the show notes on our website, so you can find those links there.
Cool. If you guys have other questions, there was one more I wanted to make sure that we got to. John R. Sports, yes, John, your buddy John. Do we have any update on when will the Falcon 9 return to flight?
No update yet.
And that's all we're saying. Good. Excellent. Moving on. Lauren gets that look like, why did you ask that question, you idiot? And my response is, I'm sorry.
No, that's what I get paid to do.
Yeah. And I just got a lovely note about my hair. Thank you so much. It is one of my one of my only features. Yeah.
Jason's hair is one of my favorite things too.
Oh, thank you. It's that and that's it. That's it for me. It's really sad, actually. Thank God I have Teague. Teague, I have been talking a lot in the last 30 seconds. Do you have any questions that we haven't gotten to before I jump around a little?
Yeah, let's jump off from Mars and talk a little bit about other planets. So there's a comment in the chat about next Jupiter mission. Do you have anything to share on that?
I'm not. We just announced a new a slew of missions that we're going to be looking at. They're in what we call the discovery phase right now. So what happens? So there's not like somebody sitting on a throne here at NASA that says this mission will do and this one we won't do. It's actually evaluated by the very scientific community that will be doing the research. Yeah. So we're entering a new phase for some of those projects now. So I'm not up to speed on them yet, but I think it's a really, really exciting time. We're also taking a look at a lot of asteroids and dwarf planets. And we're also, one of the proposals is to take a new look at Venus. If I can take off my press secretary hat for a second, though, and talk to you just about the stuff that I'm excited about. I'm very excited about the exploration of Jupiter's moon Europa, and the possibility of some kind of life that might live under the icy surface there. A couple other dwarf planets and moons that we're looking at, Enceladus and Titan. Actually, our chief scientist, Ellen Stofan, had proposed a project that would send a spacecraft to the methane seas of Titan, and actually we would sail a boat on the sea there. And I just find that incredibly romantic and magical to think that there's a place in our solar system that's basically another ocean that we could sail a ship on. And I just think that's inspiring.
Whoa. That is.
Those are just some of the places we're looking at, right? So the Juno spacecraft will be zipping past Jupiter next year. And of course, you guys all saw the images from the New Horizons spacecraft of Pluto. And that mission is going to be going further into the area of space we call the Kuiper Belt. It's the rocky, it's you could think of it like an asteroid belt in a sense. It's all these rocky pieces of gunk out there that are part of the formation of our solar system. And so we got a lot to learn about that.
Pretty cool.
Fantastic. So you mentioned Venus, and I want to go back to that for a little bit because there has been some debate about why are we spending all this time on trying to colonize Mars? Maybe we should try to be colonizing Venus instead. And it might be some kind of a, cloud city or something. We know that Venus has
Lando Calrissian does not.
Yeah, exactly.
Lando.
You heard it here first. Jason, it doesn't pick me up though. We aren't in proximity just because we're on screen together.
Shame.
Yeah. I think that's a scientific debate that the planetary scientists are going to look at. And the other thing that we have to look at, just because we're realists, and like I said earlier, no money is actually spent in space. It's all spent here on Earth. We have to examine what the budget priorities are. And so what the scientific community has said to NASA so far is Mars, we think, is the best place to look for signs of life that is like ours. That's why we've been studying it for the past 40 years. That's why we have, rovers and orbiters and other missions that are studying it. Mm-hmm. And that's why we are. That's not to say that Venus isn't interesting. Venus is really tough, though. The Russians are the country that are the folks that have done the most work studying Venus. And I think maybe one of their missions lasted a few days, but most of them have crashed. So it's a really tough planet to conquer. Again, I get lobbied all the time by Venus lovers. Honestly, like speaking of, I was reading about Tinder in the comments here. I think there's people that just go out with me to talk to me about space. And that's okay. That's all right. I mean, they're buying my drinks, so I'm happy to talk about it. But I got lobbied on a romantic liaison the other day about exploring Venus. And I was like, I don't even want to hear it. I'm just kidding.
That must get exhausting.
Yeah, that sounds super tiring.
Yeah.
Hold on. I think I speak for everybody in the audience when I say, your life sucks.
It's awful. Would you guys like a tour of my office?
Sure.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So right behind me, this is a picture of Orbital Sciences docking with the International Space Station. Woo.
Nice.
Okay, so I'm going to try to do this and look at you at the same time. And then
that's okay. Just show us the office. Don't worry about us.
So here you can see my my nice my model space station, my Curiosity rover. Mohawk guy gave me this.
Nice.
Because he's a deer. The rocket scientist is in. This is the time I took the lead singer of OK Go to the Kennedy Space Center. That was a lot of fun. And then of course I've got my Mars Explorer Barbie, who watches over me and reminds me that we need to get young women to Mars.
I like it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Here's a good question from Nick. In the business of space, how might marketing and communications change, or does it need to? I mean, Neil.
Oh, Nick. That's a
Dr.
great.
Dr. Tyson is famous for saying space needs better marketing.
Yeah. Nick, that's a great question. And I'm certainly involved in it. I don't know that I'm the authority on the matter. Certainly, what we're going to see. So one of the things that NASA does, right, is we find findings and then we release them, right? So that's all part of how we do business. But if we have a private company exploring the moon, what's the role? What do they have? When do they have to release their findings of what they find there, right? That's all uncharted territory for us right now. How do they communicate that? How do they release those findings to the public? So that's going to be something for us to definitely look at. And I think we should actually have a whole chat about how marketing and communications are going to change. I think we're going to see it going along with the changes we're going to see in the media generally, though, and how we get our news. I mean, something like Blab is exactly how we might be getting our news really in the future, and not even turning on CNN during the day. But I hope you all still watch NASA TV, because NASA TV is awesome. As
somebody who used to manage the relationship between Hulu and NASA TV, I have to agree. I'm forced to agree.
Compelled.
Indeed. Yeah. Yes. Well, guys, we've got about 15 minutes left. So if you have any questions or any thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. Throw them in the chat. Let us know if anybody wants to, if they're begging to jump into the empty seat and ask Lauren a question live on the air. I think, the space elevator.
Yes. There are no updates on the space elevator.
Is there anything?
Sorry.
Because I probably should have done this ahead of time. What are the things that if somebody comes to you and says, we want to talk to you about a lot of stuff in general, what are the no-nos? What are the lists of things that you're like, don't bother asking me these because I cannot give you any information?
Did we fake the moon landing? No, absolutely not. So don't even ask, because I'm not even going to entertain that as something that's like real.
Yeah, but we did, right? We did.
But we did. We did. Of course we did.
We did.
Jason. One of the topics we don't discuss publicly is astronaut training. We do talk about the selection of astronauts up until the point where that's public, but we do not discuss how that selection process actually occurs, and we don't allow reporters or anyone to trail our astronauts through that training process.
So the commercial space camps and stuff really have no idea whether they're offering the same kind of training that NASA is.
Well, clearly it works, because I've seen Space Camp like 100 times and they got to space and back safely. So clearly it's fine.
Or I'm sorry. I just really like the idea of a NASA astronaut in training who shows up to space camp to speak, and he just spends the day just crapping on everything. It's like,
this isn't like this in space.
Who the hell put this together?
The bathroom is not this big.
This ropes course in no way shows you what it's like to be in space. Okay.
You have no idea. So those are a couple things that are kind of hot button stuff we don't talk about.
Yeah, that's fair.
Excellent. So what are the other opportunities for commercial entry into sort of the realm of working in space? You could look at, I guess, launch vehicles, and I imagine that SpaceX and a couple of other companies have a large head start in that area. What are the areas where like startups should be looking for the next great, commercial opportunities in space? Are we talking about like asteroid mining or terraforming? What's the future?
Gosh, Teague, what a great question. There is a really high barrier to entry in terms of developing your own rocket ship, right? That's just really expensive. And that's why we see billionaires like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos in that game, right? Because to compete with like the like what we call old space, the Lockheed Martins and the United Launch Alliance on those. Exactly. It's really hard to get into that, right? So, but there's so many opportunities for people to get involved in another way. The first one, we're seeing a lot of this going on right now, is CubeSats. There's KickSat projects, ArduSat projects. That's a really low barrier to entry to getting to space. We put you on we call them secondary payloads, meaning we put all these little CubeSats, and they sincerely are the size of a cube, that are filled with science experiments, something as simple as a iPhone camera to take images of space, and others much more complicated. But we're seeing a lot of app developers and companies in Silicon Valley who are really getting engaged in this. And we're also seeing development of this around the world, because again, it's really low barrier to entry. You don't have to have your own rocket ship to get to space. We launch them on a ship that's already going. They go to the space station. Space station astronauts go into the Japanese node of the station. They take all the CubeSats. They push them out the door, just like a drive-through window. They go out. They deploy. And then they're there. And there's so much work that's being done there. And again, I'll share some links about this later. A couple other things I wanted to mention too. So every year for the past couple of years, we've published a software catalog, and this, it's all of NASA's open code. You have access to it, and web developers should use it. I think I was reading an example earlier that we had the same of the same code that we used to help build the space station was actually used by a dating site. I don't know how or why. Thank you, Jason. That's exactly the link. So folks should check that out. And our ambitious folks who are working on spin-off technology in that area, Dan Lockney and others, are actually doing a better project to help track NASA patents. Again, NASA's patented materials are open to the world to use. And so we're trying to do a better job of making those more accessible to entrepreneurs and people in the tech space.
Yeah.
So how recent is the NASA sort of commitment to open source? Because I imagine this was not going on during the space race, where we were kind of trying to be the first ones to land.
Right.
When did it sort of switch over?
Well, I've been in NASA 4 years, so it's hard for me to really speak about I don't know how committed we were to it in the past, but in the past 5 years, certainly, you've seen an incredible commitment on behalf of NASA to get this done by a large number of people, starting at the top and all the way down through the organization, which is makes it, again, a pretty exciting time to be at space. It's all back to opening space up to more people, democratizing space. If you can get access to NASA patents and the work we've done, Teague, Jason, Nick, somebody else is going to have the next big idea of something you can do with space research.
Yeah. Well, not me, but I think everybody else. I mean,
You're kind of smart.
I'm really not.
Okay, never mind.
I'm really not. I think you're very generous. I think you're very kind. Yeah.
Jason's going to apply to be the next astronaut.
Yeah.
That's what
you should definitely apply. You should definitely apply. Again, USA Jobs is pretty straightforward in applying.
Teague, I know for a fact that you and I cannot apply because we wear glasses.
That is not true. That is not true. As long as your vision can be corrected to a 20/20 vision, either using glasses or LASIK or something else, then you can apply.
See, I'm going to space. Yeah, I was going to say.
Also, how tall are you guys? How tall are you?
5'11".
6 foot.
Yep, you're fine.
Okay.
We don't have astronauts in the Corps shorter than 5'4" and 6'2", and there's a simple reason for that. The EVA suits, the big white space suits, are sized to fit people in that size frame.
Right.
And we only have a set number of them. So until we have more of those space suits, people who are shorter and taller don't fit. The other issue with that too is not just you fit in the suit type thing, but we find that people who are at either end of the height spectrum, whether they're really short or really tall, actually absorb more radiation. Radiation absorption is a huge issue for astronauts. We have, our medical doctors are always looking at it. And so people who are shorter and people who are taller, for reasons I can't explain, absorb radiation more. And so that's another reason why we have those prohibitions.
I've had a couple of CAT scans in my life. I'm sure I'm fine. It's no big deal.
Well, and actually, Jason, I think you and I talked about this a little bit, but it's a real issue for women astronauts because women, through getting mammograms earlier in life, have a higher exposure to radiation. And also our bones tend to absorb radiation a little bit more. So as we look to the future of long duration spaceflight, we're going to have to really address those radiation concerns.
Sure, absolutely. Well, there's got to be some Star Trek solution that we can translate into we've done that with cell phones and medical tricorders, and why not the deflector shield that deflects all radiation?
Nailed it. Radiation shields, it's well done.
Thank you.
I mean, honestly, my boss is Charlie Bolden. He's a 4-time flown astronaut and a 34-year veteran of the Marine Corps. And one of his top concerns on going to Mars, and he wants us to get to Mars. He insists that we're getting to Mars, but radiation is one of his top concerns.
Well, it's a very reasonable concern. Certainly not just because of the long-term effects of developing cancer when you're later, but the kind of exposure to radiation that one one would expect to get on a long-term trip to Mars, let alone the even remote possibility of getting back, would probably be, I don't know, kind of like living in a PET scan machine. Like it probably is not great.
It's not great. And, the folks who do space travel accept these challenges and are willing to do it. But that doesn't mean that as a people, we shouldn't try to protect them as much as possible.
Yeah, cool. We got 5 minutes. Go ahead.
I like Dale's interpretation that, it just means the super tall and the super short are more likely to become superheroes by absorbing all that radiation.
It is. That's a great point. I hadn't thought about that, but
I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the recent Fantastic Four movie is actually a documentary, which is why it did so badly. Nobody watches documentaries.
No.
Yep.
Somebody.
Oh, here's a good one. So Mr. Wonderful in the chat just mentioned what about warp drive and the talk about warp drive at NASA? There was a paper, I guess, a year ago or a couple years ago about how it's theoretically possible.
There's folks doing some studies on this. Sure, I'm sure it's theoretically possible. It's
and of course, whenever somebody says theoretically, they actually mean not really.
Right. With the technology has not. The technology has not advanced to the point where this idea is like an actual idea. We're still looking at doing a lot of solar propulsion and ion propulsion, and we're doing a really important study on that. NASA has what we call the asteroid redirect mission. Okay, here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to find an asteroid. We're going to send a robot to the asteroid. We're going to pick off a piece of it, and then using little jets, we're going to redirect the asteroid, put it in a stable orbit around the moon, where it will stay for at least 100 years. So you're all fine. And then we're going to send astronauts to study it. And what's important about that mission, we get a lot of criticism about that mission, but what's really important is doing a test run of this solar electric propulsion technology that we're studying actually in Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland,
had to bring Ohio into it.
Ohio.
But it's really important. And yes, if we had that kind of technology, the ability to redirect an asteroid, it doesn't take much, just as if, if I were a linebacker playing football, I don't have to actually if I'm the defenseman, I don't actually have to keep him completely from getting to, push him away. I just got to keep him from the quarterback. So whatever I do to deflect him is going to keep him from the quarterback, right? So
just because
you know me and my sports analogy.
I was going to say, just because Ohio State is having an okay season and Northwestern is 5-0, doesn't mean we need to start pulling out the football metaphors. Okay, let's take a breath.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I was in the marching band. What do you want from me?
Sorry, I was in theater.
Oh, nerd. Anyway. But the point is that we're going to learn a lot from that. And that's really important. Again, we know that the dinosaurs are dead as a result of an asteroid colliding with Earth. We know that Earth gets hit every day, all day long with these asteroids. And that's part, again, going back to the Asteroid Grand Challenge, what we're trying to understand. Now, the good news is that we have identified most of what we call the city killers. It's an affectionate term that we use here.
Most. That makes me feel good.
But we haven't found all the smaller ones, and so we're doing a lot of work to do that. And in a spoiler, we're going to be making a major announcement coming in the next few weeks or so about how you, as individuals on your own phone, could download a capability to help us with that. So Stay tuned for that.
Well, now I'm going to the App Store. Hang on. Oh no, that's just words with friends.
So is this asteroid mission related to the recent success at harpooning an asteroid? That's a thing we succeeded at recently, right?
So we've got a lot of work that we're doing. So first we have the European mission with the Rosetta mission, where we've actually caught up with a comet and landed a lander on the comet, which is really, really hard to do. And we accomplished it. And it looks like it woke up, which is great now that it's got a little sun on its back. Next year, we have a shout out to my friends working on the OSIRIS-REx mission. We're actually going to launch a spacecraft to an asteroid, and we're going to scoop out a piece of it and then send that stuff back to Earth to be analyzed. So that's a really key piece of all the work that we're trying to do. And every one of these things helps us get closer to sending astronauts to Mars, because we got a lot to learn there.
Pretty cool.
As evidenced by the movie The Martian.
Obviously, and it all comes full circle.
Well played.
Indeed. Well, it's about 2 minutes till the hour, so we're gonna wrap it up and let Lauren get back to her life. Lauren, aside from the stuff that we've been throwing in the chat, if people want to reach out to you, ask more questions, find you or NASA online, where are the best places for them to look?
So you should all be following NASA on Twitter @NASA. Follow us on Instagram, same handle, and Facebook, of course. We're also on Google+. And we just recently launched a Tumblr. So we're on all forms of social media, so you should definitely find us there. You can follow me if you're interested in my crazy adventures @SpaceLauren on Twitter, and I would love it if you follow me. I try to tweet out some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that I get to see being the administrator's press secretary, and stuff that I just generally think is cool. Also tweet about my workouts a lot. Sorry about that.
Well, you got to keep up with the astronauts.
I do, man. Guys, these guys are they work out 2 hours a day. Anyway, so definitely follow me there. And then, like I said, I'll be tweeting out later today a little Storify with links to all the stuff we discussed today. But I'm always happy to take more questions and certainly send them anytime to me. Maybe we'll do this again. Maybe I'll bring some experts on, right? Like people who actually know what they're talking about. That would be great.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
So,
where can people find you?
You can find me at TeagueHopkins on Twitter or teaguehopkins.com. And you can find our show at StartupJab.com, where we'll put a bunch of these links in the show notes so that folks can find all the things that we've been talking about here today.
And Mr. Wonderful just posts another picture of me. God help me, he picks the perfect one every time because I'm such a snarky bastard. Well, you can find me at Jason Ellis here on Twitter. As Teague mentioned, come and join us at StartupJab.com, where you can subscribe to our shows, listen to the podcast, all that good stuff. I'm also available at my company's website, overachievermedia.com, if you ever have questions related to that. And unfortunately, we just got Jason with the good beard who showed up at the last second, but that's okay, Jason. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, guys, we really appreciate your time. Please feel free to tweet at any of us if you have any questions or thoughts about today's show or thoughts about new shows. So sign up for our newsletter. We're getting more and more of you guys every day. We're really trying to turn this into a regular thing, and we'd love your help to do that. Lauren, thank you for your time. This was awesome.
That was lovely.
Thanks,
it was a lot
Lauren.
of fun. Thank
really
you
wonderful.
so much.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Astra.
Have a good day.